Greetings everyone, JLB back with part 2 of my reactions to the 1983 CES. Now this is going to be from the summer CES. I don't know if the past portion where I saw and where you heard my reactions to the Odyssey Command Center was winter or summer, but I digress. Either way, let's head to the summer CES of 1983. This time, it's the Atari booth. For those of you who don't know Atari, I don't think you've played any of the old classic games that they released. Pong, Breakout, Gauntlet, what other Atari games were released? Oh yeah, Asteroids, my personal favorite. Clearly, you don't know much about Atari, but I'm pretty sure you've seen the logo somewhere. But anyway, let's head to their booth at the 1983 Summer CES, where they were showing off several games for their Atari 2600, as well as previewing a console that they released the previous year, the Atari 5200, a very infamous system known for often having issues with the controllers and having that proprietary box where you had to connect it to the radio antenna on the back of your television set, or RF out cables or whatever. Yeah, for those of you who don't know much about anything about Atari, I highly recommend finding out more. But anyway, let's get to it. The voice you hear is someone introducing the video. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is the Atari VCS. Then that was the technical name for the video computer system. And so far, it looks like, yeah, it's the mid-'80s, and Atari was trying to go after licensing deals, including one involving the Muppets. Miss Piggy's Wedding, this one says. So, I don't know if you're playing as Kermit the Frog or Miss Piggy, but whatever the case, I'm pretty sure that some of the games around here were unreleased. Ah, here's one that I know wasn't released. Snoopy and the Red Baron. It basically takes the flying scene. You remember that scene where Snoopy fights the Red Baron in It's the Great Pumpkin? Well, picture that in video game form. Donald Duck's Speedboat. So they weren't just going after the Muppets, they were going after Peanuts, which was basically Charlie Brown, Snoopy, etc., and Disney. This is one I don't think that they managed to release. Donald Duck's Speedboat. Dumbos Flying Circus, supposedly based on the Disney film of the same name, Dumbo. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of us know who Dumbo is and what movie he's from, but he also had a television show, which I think debuted on the Disney Channel in 1983. Could be wrong. Let me know in the comments when the Disney Channel first aired. I think it was in 83. But one of the shows that came on for the Disney Channel in 83 was Dumbos Circus. So likely this game was supposed to cash in on the show if it was popular enough. But honestly, it may have been unreleased. I'm not really sure. The Sorcerer's Apprentice. This one I know was released because I saw a commercial for it. Basically, it follows Mickey. You play as Mickey Mouse, trying to save the entire place where he's studying magic under the command of Master Yen Sid, who we know from the Kingdom Hearts games, and save it from being flooded by all those brooms they brought to life. You remember the short film Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia? Yeah, this is where it came from. They were also going after Sesame Street stuff in the 80s because Sesame Street was pretty popular with little kids. I mean, from its beginnings in 1969 up until 1983, it was pretty good. Now, I don't know if this game was being conceived during when the Mr. Hooper episode aired on television. I think some of you might know what I mean by the Mr. Hooper episode of Sesame Street, but I don't know if this game came out when that episode aired. Cookie Monster Munch, another Sesame Street tie-in. So basically these games were cashing in on Sesame Street by focusing on at least one Sesame Street character a game. The first one was Big Bird, and this one was called Cookie Monster. Well, Cookie Monster Munch specifically. And trust me, if there's any game character that I think you can make a video game after, it would probably be Cookie Monster. And Alpha Beam with Ernie, definitely something for the little kids. I think this one came out for the Atari as well. Basically, you're playing as Ernie, trying to sort out different letters and such while in space. Here's something I'm familiar with. I believe this might be Pole Position. Now, for those of you who are into arcade games, like myself, you know that Pole Position was one of the best arcade racers in the 1980s. And obviously, Atari wanted to cash in. Wanted to cash in on the popularity of Pole Position for the home market, so they ported the game over to the Atari 2600. Now, I'll admit that the game looks rather chunky compared to its superior arcade version, but hey, it was the best Atari could do at the time. And here's a completely different version of Battlezone that they got here. Another classic arcade game from the 80s. Now, of course, you can't really do vector graphics on a home console unless you were GCE and you were releasing the Vectrex, the only console to do arcade-worthy vector graphics. But if you were Atari and you wanted to port one of your vector-based games over to your console, well, you'd have to try and go for full-color graphics, not vectors. I'll admit Battlezone looked more impressive in the arcades than it did on the home console, but had to make do with what they had. And then of course you had an arcade port of Joust. And quite frankly, this is probably my vote for weirdest game concept yet. Because basically in the game, you have to fly around as a knight riding an ostrich. What were they thinking of at And Williams, when they were coming up with this game, I have no idea, because Williams was the same guy who created Defender, I believe, as well as Robotron 2084. But Joust, definitely weirdest game I ever seen. But I have respect for it. I played it. It's pretty good, pretty decent. But then again, I played it on a console with superior graphics, or an emulator. Jungle Hunt. Another arcade port. Again, another case of the arcade version being way better than the console version. And that was basically it, short and sweet. Admittedly, Atari did their best porting games over to the Atari 2600, but clearly what Nolan Bushnell thought of after they released the 2600 was true. The product would be gone in just about 4 years. The guys at Atari just didn't want to listen to him, so they pushed the Atari 2600 further and waited until the Intellivision and the ColecoVision came out to put out a console with better graphics. But anyway, stay tuned for part 3 of my CES reactions and overview and such. Until then, take care, and don't worry, the E3 hype train, it doesn't stop at E3 2021. It'll keep going on to the next E3 when the E3 season begins. So, with that being out of the way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.